This is the 2020 Service Pack 3 technical seminar on Blue Open Studio, EcoStruxure, Machine SCADA Expert. So not a lot of stuff going on in Service Pack 3. There's a lot of stuff kind of under the hood. And then there's a couple of interesting driver additions that are quite interesting. So I'm going to take this a little bit slow, so feel free to ask questions, etc. Moving on, a little bit of a different face doing these presentations now. Everybody's in the past. Paul Derbyshire has been doing these, and since I've taken over for Paul this summer, this is the first time I've done one of these, so be nice. This is me in my face. I'm going to turn it off. Just again, another minor note, right? Service Pack 3 is a minor upgrade from Service Pack 2, so it's 2020 Service Pack 3. So the point is that you can have, like, say, version 8 from before, and then you can, if you want to get Service Pack 3, then it's easier to just uninstall Service Pack 2 and then fully install Service Pack 3. Pretty standard stuff. Okay. So here's the list of features and items that have been added to Service Pack 3. All right, so just moving on, just give me 1 second. Sorry. Okay, so moving on, just a couple we wanted to, because with the release of the HMI runtime or embedded runtime for Linux in the new Edge box, we just wanted to reiterate some of these, just so we can get the names straight again. So when we talk about these different components, what we're talking about is in the old name was build time, project development environment, and now we're just calling that studio. But the big thing to keep in mind here is this runtime for Windows and Windows Server is now what we're calling SCADA runtime or Windows runtime. And you'll see these terms kind of interchange just depending on, whoever wrote the document decided what words to use. And then the runtime for Linux, the name is either HMI runtime or embedded runtime. And all these names have been put into the help manuals, etc. Okay. All right. So some new information about build time licenses and new runtime licenses. Okay. So one thing to note is that all the build time licenses allow development for both the SCADA, the Windows platform, and the HMI platform under Linux. The existing, so there is an existing part number for a 500 tag build time license. It's currently not available for order. We had some snafus between us and Aviva. So that's on hold until the 2023 release, which obviously will be next year. So for now, we still just have the lowest build time count we have is 1,500 tags. What we have done is there is a new reference for a 1,500 tag runtime. Okay. That's a new reference, and so what this means is that at this time, this is really only applicable to the 500 tag runtime built into the Edge box, right? Because there's no 500 tag runtime for Windows today. And just so everybody knows, to upgrade 500 tag runtime, if you want to go all the way up to 4,000 tags, which that's not a new number because that number already exists. The upgrades both upgrades need to be purchased, the 1,500 tag in the 4,000, and then I just put in the those are the part numbers, those were existing, and then there will be, and I think at this time we haven't finalized this, but there will be some changes coming to the remote agent to support new runtime licenses for the, to get the firmware basically into the Edge box to support the new licenses. So kind of just what that, this is what that looks like. Oops, go back one more. So that's what this looks like now inside the target system. So if I'll just open up. So you'll see now when you are in your project. So now you have additional, here are all the license types that now exist in the software. Okay. So nothing, pretty straightforward. Okay. Okay, then we move on to some general and usability improvements. There's been an improvement done to the verify, 65% reduction. Added Japanese language support for messages and menus, improving readability, and then also added support for log to file to log Japanese characters. And then this is kind of an important one. So now we have official support for Windows 11 in Server 2022. Okay. All right. Moving on, under general and usability improvements, like I said, a lot of the stuff in Service Pack 3 is kind of, a lot of this stuff is under the hood, so to speak. So it's a lot of, not outwardly apparent as to what's happening here. So one thing that you'll notice is that the enhanced graphics option has been taken away. This was something that had to do with providing anti-aliasing for lines, edges, etc. And it's just something they're depreciating. Okay. All right. A mobile access improvement. Sorry, I'm not totally sure what that means, but it's been added. Again, a lot of this, again, under the hood stuff. Okay. All right. Moving on, cybersecurity. Here's some interesting things that are happening. Improve Studio Database Gateway to support a secure connection. So basically MTLS for encryption and authentication. So those other changes to the database gateway. Unfortunately, today this is only for the Windows runtime. The HMI runtime Linux, this will be supported in 2023. And then documentation for all the how to configure the certificates, et cetera, will be in the technical reference for the software. All right. Again, another kind of under the hood thing, some changes to the DCOM hardening in the operating system. I think we all kind of deal with that not too much anymore. And then I guess there was a problem with remote browsing. And then this is another interesting one at the end. They've added support for TLS 1.2 to the email client. Okay. Okay. This next one is kind of an interesting thing. This is a trusted projects option that's been added. And I know if for people that are not aware of this, Blue Open Studio, Machine SCADA Expert, all the projects are basically all file based. So you basically just have a set of files that sit in a folder, and you can move. It's nice because you can move stuff around between projects very easily, etc. But you can also kind of, I guess you could screw somebody up if you really wanted to. So what they've added under options, and this is on by default. Basically what happens is when you open a project and there's been changes to it since the last time that you opened it, it's just basically going to flag you, and it's just going to say, hey, did you really make these changes? Let's see if I can trigger something. Let me see if I can find a project here. Something like this. I can't do it. Okay. But basically what happens is if there's been changes made to a project, you'll get this little message up here from the right-hand corner. It basically says, and basically all this is this is just simply confirmation, and it's just basically notifying you that there's been changes made to this project. Be aware of them. And that's all this is really doing. It's not flagging you as to what the changes were or anything like that. It's just basically telling you there's been changes made. So that's and it's, like I said, you can turn it off if you'd like, but it will be on by default. Okay. All right. Again, getting more into cybersecurity stuff. There's this this is kind of an under hood thing. If you've got .NET controls that were created using Service Pack 2 or older versions, they are being depreciated. So when you open the project now, it's basically going to give you warnings about that this is going to be applied to this new project when you basically save it. Okay. All right, again, more .NET. This is kind of in the same subject. If you want to alter this compatibility, you can do this manually in the app file. Okay. Okay. Again, added the feature historic. This is the trend configuration. Now the gateway user, so we can use the gateway credentials directly when we use the historian. And then, like I said, if the user password are empty and the gateway is running on the same machine, it will write to the historian. Okay. So that is all we have for cybersecurity. Okay. Moving on, there's some interesting things that they did with the drivers. This is actually this first line. I don't know how much experience, if anybody's had experience with using the Allen Bradley control logics driver that basically uses a tag, freely named tags. It used to be that if any tag within a block that the runtime was asking for, if any one tag in the block, the whole block would fail and it would not scan anymore. So they've improved that. So if you get one bad tag in the middle of a bunch of good tags, it won't bomb the whole driver. It'll continue to scan. So that's kind of huge for Rockwell users. That's been a kind of a thorn in the side for some Rockwell users for sure. And then there's some other stuff, that maybe you have or haven't run into. There's been some, then in the watch window, they've done some improvements so that the tags, so you can actually see what the status of the tags is in a little bit better way. Okay. And then again, so this is all kind of, added logic to remove invalid items, because it's kind of all related to basically, not bombing when you just had one bad tag is what this is all related to. Okay. Also under drivers, and this is actually jumping ahead a little bit into the MQTT driver, which we haven't talked about at all. But basically these are talking about, these are new status codes that you can get in the watch window, basically telling us when I completed the read group, but one or more addresses in the group are invalid. And so that's kind of really important. And then if they're all invalid, then you get a 101 error. So that's going to be the case for both of these drivers. All right. The next one is, this is kind of for the machine expert guys. This is kind of important. This is, so the code assist driver now supports authentication. So if you kind of go here, I can kind of show you. It supports authentication now. So now when you go into the code assist settings, you can see, if you go here to authentication, you can put in your station, which is your string to get at the controller, and then the username and password gets put in here. Okay. Straightforward stuff. That's still being investigated by me. I have a release candidate that I'm experimenting with, and I'm trying to iron out some of the details as to how this is working with tag integration and how that applies to using driver sheets, etc. So I will add that information to this document once we get confirmation from Aviva on how this is all functioning. So you'll see some more information in here when I actually publish this document. Okay. So that's interesting one. Moving on, DNP driver, again, this is, like I said, this is all just the driver improvements that are present. The DNP driver improved reconnection and reduced timeouts. This is another interesting one. This is the Mitsu driver, which is basically the FX driver for Machine SCADA and Blue Open Studio. So now we have TCP, we basically have Ethernet and serial communications for basically the box, the HMI runtime in Linux. So not just for Windows anymore. Okay. And then this is quite interesting also, new MQTT driver. So the first thing in the driver enhancements is support for Azure IoT Hub and Amazon Web Services core brokers. like I said, new status codes. And then with this enhancement, we will release a new TVDA similar to this one. Like, so today we are using we're using Modbus between the Teltonica modem in either GP Pro or a Blue runtime. And then we're relying on the Teltonica to push the data into, AWS or Azure. So we're with this new release, we will create a new TVDA that will basically have, Blue Open Studio, modem or not. We can now directly connect to, using MQTT to those two services. So just to kind of, again, to show you, so if I come in here and I add a driver, could have done this before, but so if I add a driver, okay, go into here, you'll see you pick, that's not what I wanted. If I go to authentication, oh, sorry, the broker type is what I was looking for. Sorry about that. So you can see now in the broker type, you can see you've got Azure and Amazon. And then when you go in here, you could see there's certificate handling. So AWS IoT certificates, et cetera. So there's quite a lot to do there. The nice thing is that if you do look, it is documented in there's a step-by-step. So if I go to the help file for MQTT, you'll see, if I didn't pass it up, it's talking about adding the drivers. That's the Spark plug. That stuff was already in here. Here's the authentication. Here's further certificates. That stuff was, I believe, already in here, but when I get further down. Yeah, so you can see there's a chapter on just communicating with Azure IoT Hub. And then if I get through there. And then you can see there's a chapter just on communicating with AWS IoT. Okay. So a couple of interesting things. All right. Moving on again. So in the MQTT again, so they've added these status codes, and this has to do with, Spark plug B and doing store and forward. So you can see there's just a couple of status codes for telling you, hopefully telling you a little bit more about what's happening when you're doing store and forward. So these are new status codes. Okay. All right. Next one is the Omron. Basically, this is referring to the Omron Ethernet IP driver, right? So this driver was previously just in Windows, and basically now we've added it into the Linux, basically the EdgeBox HMI runtime. A note about this driver is this driver only works if you buy a license from Omron. And then depending on what country you're in, you may or may not be able to get that out of Omron. If you cannot get this driver, then there are other Omron drivers that you can use, but you can't do the tag-based Ethernet IP driver, unfortunately, without that license from Omron. Okay. And then next one, this is a driver update. This is for the Triconix driver. Not sure how much anybody deals with this, but there's been evidently some changes made to this particular driver. So, okay. So you can see not a lot going on. I think what we will end up doing once we can I've been playing with a release candidate, etc. So like I said, when I get some more information, mainly related to the code assist driver, etc., I will update the document. But does the